The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, aka the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery.
Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I'm a recovered drug addict. Exit Team is a show where we bring you people with real-life experiences with the suffering of addiction and real-life experiences and the solution and recovery of addiction. So if this is your first show and you're just tuning in, welcome. If you've been watching us and following us, thank you. As you can see, we've mixed it up a little bit tonight. We have Meredith Meng here as our co-host.
Hi.
Meredith is an interventionist, and she's someone that I actually hold very dear to my heart. She played a huge role in my early recovery and is someone that's actually still really involved in my recovery in life, and she's a mentor to me. So it's an honor to have you on the show.
Aw, thanks, Jazz.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and then we have Matt.
Yay!
Hi, Matt. Who are you?
My name is Matt. I'm a grateful recovering heroin addict. On April 21st, I celebrated 12 years in recovery.
What? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
1 or 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Greater Boston area. Got into drugs at a young age. Started at 12, really smoking a cigarette. And it was all about acceptance in the group of kids that I hung around with, and that kind of followed me on my path to alcohol, to weed, to like ecstasy mushrooms, and eventually to Oxycontin. And Oxycontin took me for a nice spin. At the time, you didn't realize that it was synthetic heroin in a pill, and the education that I got off of Oxycontin was that this is like taking a few perks.
Yeah.
It wasn't synthetic heroin in a pill, or that you'll end up with a needle in your arm, homeless, hopeless, and on the streets. So when I tried it, it gave me every feeling that I searched out in every other drug, whether it was alcohol. It gave me the confidence to like go, talk to the hot girl in class. The courage to go fight somebody I had a problem with. Like it made me feel like, like I was whole, like I was missing this part of me when I was growing up, and it progressively got worse. It started on the weekends. It was easier for us to get OC80s than it was to get alcohol.
Yeah.
Didn't need a fake ID. Call your drug dealer up. He's not going to ID you. He's just going to come as long as you have the cash. And, and on top of it, everybody around me was doing it. So when everybody around you is doing something, it seems like it's socially acceptable. None of us really saw the problem of it. You don't, looking back almost 20 years from when that was going on, it's like, how many of those people are dead? How many of those people are sitting in jail? Like when we were all doing it, having a good time, like we didn't realize the consequences of what we were doing. Ugh. And it brought us to some lowly places. And, eventually it progressed from oxys to doing heroin, to sniffing it, to shooting dope. And, I remember when I was doing 80s and I was ending up in detoxes looking at dope addicts. Like, I'm never going to be like you.
Yeah.
I'm better than you. I'll never end up being a dope addict. I'll never end up being homeless. I'll never do A, B, and C. And then when I started doing dope, it's like, well, I sniff it, I don't shoot it. You're disgusting, not me. I'm better than you.
Yep.
And lo and behold, down the road, I ended up sticking a needle in my arm, burn every bridge around me till I was on an island. I had no contact with family because they were sick and tired of all like those false promises and lies I would tell them. Like I'd end up in a program, try to stick it out and fight a flight in tough situations. I would take off. I couldn't handle it. When I was trying to get clean, like just those fears and insecurities would always kick up that like the drugs suppressed.
Right.
And it brought me to like a low place, and I was hopeless. And at the time, towards the end of my run, like I just wanted to die. Like I didn't want to live anymore. And so every time I got high, it was with the intention of not waking up in the morning. Right. And when you get to that place, it's a very dark one. I didn't have any contact with family. My only friend was my drug dealer because he would pick the phone up for me. And
Great friend.
Yeah, he was awesome, solid as they come.
Yeah.
And you know, I was just like, I was hopeless, I was broken. I was living with one of my best friends and his mother, and I used to give his mother heroin as my way to like stay there, and we all got high together. And my buddy Eddie ended up getting into this program, and he knew at the end of my run, like I was on this suicide mission, and he was like, you have to get in here. And you know, finally, I was dope sick for like a couple of days, and his mother had turned to me and she goes, you have a problem, you need to go and get help, with like a lovely curse word in between there. But she told me I need to go and get help and that I had a problem, as she ended up jamming something in the arm that would have made me feel good.
Right.
And I didn't get any.
Right.
And I remember I went in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and I was like 130 pounds soaking wet. I was wearing the same clothes for probably a month. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't shower. I didn't care about myself. Like the only thing, every single day I woke up with the only intention that I had was, how am I going to get money? How I'm going to hustle?
Yep.
How I'm going to get high, go to sleep, wake up, do the same process over again. And that's like what surrounded my life. And at that point, like over time, you might look at yourself, you might make sure like your hair's all right, like your clothes are good, and you don't actually take a look at yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you really don't. You think you look okay, but you really don't.
You're trying to like, you know, to check in on things. You don't actually take like a look at who you are. And I saw like a complete stranger looking back at me at that time. And at that point, like I had some criminal issues going on. I had been arrested like 8, 9 times while I was on trial for something. And I was facing significant jail time. I was on a suicide mission. My family wouldn't pick the phone up, like had no friends, had nothing going on. Like I was just, you know, I hit rock bottom. And, you know, I got high one more time, ended up walking from South Boston to Alston to go to detox, because nobody would pick me up and get me a ride, because the times they did that, I used to pretty much cry to them about getting money for one more bag and let me get high before I go in there. So nobody wanted to even be around me, and I ended up getting into a detox, and a lot of things just like happened to fall into place. I ended up getting a bed at this the program, the Hamilton House in Dorchester, which is like one of the hottest halfway houses in the state at that time. And I wasn't supposed to get a bed. I was only supposed to be there for an interview. And I ended up sitting there from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night.
Will you do me a favor for our viewers watching that don't know what a halfway house is?
A halfway house is a public program in Massachusetts. For a halfway house, it's a state-funded 6-month, like structured halfway house.
Yeah,
I don't
'cause we
want to
don't
even
have
call
those
it.
at New Hampshire.
Yeah,
We don't have those in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire doesn't have like the state
Yeah.
run. So it's like, for me, the house that I went to, it was pretty much a therapeutic community, a TC, where the rules were so structured. If we were late for a minute, our stuff was packed on the front porch, see you later. If you couldn't pee in time, you were kicked out. We had groups every day. We had no overnight passes, no weekend passes. We had to work, make your bed, 6 guys in a room, 2 showers for 20-something men. Went to the food pantry for food. Fish stick
Pretty
Fridays.
desperate, pretty willing.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and grateful to be in a place like
I
that,
was
but
actually
grateful to be there.
What's funny, you know, from what I do now, I hear some of the complaints of the facility that I run.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I was just so grateful to have a pillow and a blanket.
Amen,
So, like,
yeah.
my mother threw me out when I was 16 years old. So from 16 to 21, I was couch hopping. I was bouncing from place to place. So, like, I slept in basements, on couches. Like, I had apartments, and I got evicted because the things that were going on in the apartment weren't right. And, you know, I was just used to sleeping in the most uncomfortable situations. And then it got to a point where I was sleeping in the streets.
Ugh, yeah.
So, like, when you get to these
Right.
points,
Right.
when he gave me a pillow and a blanket
Yeah.
and a bed, like, it was one of the most, the best freedom that I had.
A warm shower.
Yeah,
I
like, I
remember
got-
when I finally could like take a shower again after being homeless and how good that felt.
Yeah.
And just like, I was really grateful. Like, I was really grateful for the opportunity. Like, I had tried other programs and they didn't pan out. The guy that ran the house went to court for me, and I was in the court system since I was 14 years old. So, like, he went to bat saying, give this kid a chance, give him a chance to get clean. Like, clearly all of the crimes I ever committed were due to my drug use, due to the fact that I wanted to get high. And, like, I've never committed a crime sober. So, like, he went to court, he went to bat for me. even though he was probably one of the worst human beings alive. He was very high, but I mean, you know, he helped me out tremendously.
Yeah.
And, you know, in that house, one of the things, like my biggest therapeutic tool, like I rediscovered, one of the biggest things that helps me stay clean is writing poetry. And I was in a house with like 20-something guys that we were either on our way to prison or paroled to this program. So there's a bunch of like, you know, there was a guy, Tommy, in there, who was 6'5" and a monster, just came out of jail. And he was my roommate at one point, and I was not turning to him and being like, hey, buddy, I'm struggling, like, let's talk about something because of my own insecurities and fears.
Right.
So one of the things that I did was I filtered out, like, my feelings, experiences, and what I was going through on a piece of paper. And that was one of the ways that I got it out. And, you know, in early recovery, it was hard. There was times that I wanted to give up, but that program, like, gave me the structure that I needed. It held me accountable, which, like, when I'm getting high, like, and from being on the streets at a young age, once the rules got too hard for me at like one of my friends' houses, like their mother's like, hey, you gotta like actually show up if you're gonna stay here. I would bounce to the next place until those rules got too hard. So like having rules in place, having the accountability, surrounding myself with good people, and like, you know, I started revisiting like things that I enjoyed as a kid. Like I love sports, like I loved them, and you don't really play basketball when you're shooting heroin. You don't play stickball.
You're going to though. You're like, I'm gonna do that. You never get it done.
Never.
There's so many things we could gotta do.
Yeah, but you never do any of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I started rediscovering like loves that I had from when I was a kid, and when like the drugs weren't completely overtaking my life. And like over like the last 12 years of recovery, like I've been completely blessed. Like I really live a life second to none. Like I got 2 beautiful kids. My son's like such a handsome little devil, and my daughter's the most beautiful girl in the world. She is the devil at times. She can be a reckless, you know, crazy kid, but she's like, you know, those 2 kids are my world. I put out a book in 2012. Like I've performed. So that poetry that started in this little notebook and these thoughts and feelings that when I write alone, I ended up taking that, putting that as a platform, and it's given me so many opportunities throughout my recovery that have like branched out into having a book, into performing across the country, like speaking to middle schoolers, high schoolers, and colleges. Like I get to try to inspire other people to get better, and that's like a gift that I try not to take for granted. Like I'm very blessed that I have that opportunity to like inspire people to do better, because I know like when I got clean, people went to jail. Like nobody talked about getting clean. It's like when you get handcuffs on you, when you end up in Bill Ricker, when you go upstate, like that's when people were like, hey, I got to stop using drugs. It wasn't like, hey, let's go to a program, or I need to get help. It was a little different than it is right now. And, you know, being on the flip side of that, where like I get to now try to help somebody that's struggling and suffering, show them that like they can accomplish anything. Because over 12 years now, I opened up my own treatment center in Massachusetts. I've worked in the field. I've put out a book. I was Recovery Advocate of the Year in 2015.
Amazing.
I performed behind the White House at a Fed Up rally. I've traveled to Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, Chicago, Baltimore, Florida, Virginia, to like perform, to share these words that I write when I'm alone that like help me get through. And it happens that other people can relate to it as well. And
let us hear something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let us hear something.
Since we were on an advocacy thing before the cameras started rolling, I'll do the broken system. And I wrote this, and it's funny because it's right around the same time as it happened when the bridge closed down and they cut out 680 resource beds on the island in Massachusetts that were detox, TSS, CSS, pre-release, juvenile programs, family shelters. They cut all these services out and they bust everybody off. And all of a sudden, we saw this rise in overdose rate because we lost all those services, and then we didn't have anything to replace them. So I wrote this piece called The Broken System, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the main just things at that time that I got that advocacy award for, but it's called The Broken System. When I got high, it was to escape the pain of hurt. Explaining addiction to a normal person is like a woman with no kids explaining the pain of birthing. Let me break it down to you. These 4 to 5 day spin washes aren't working. We need to scrap the Massachusetts model of treatment and come up with a better version, because these suits and ties would rather close their curtains, ignoring the state's overdose rate is continuously surging. These politicians must be living in a fairy tale. At times trying to get into a detox like a dog chasing its own tail. The system is set up for us to fail to the point. Sometimes it's easier to go detox in jail. Call the programs up to here. We got no beds. Then when you do get into detox, they load you up on enough meds until the entire unit looks like a night of the living dead. A fortified day escape from the day-to-day. A safe place to stay. But there's no beds in aftercare programs, so the decision gets made to hand you a list and send you on your way. Back to the same old same. Like those 4 days is going to fix the years of pain, years of strain, years of sniffing pills to push the poison in your veins. Addiction is like a ball and chain, a slave whenever it calls your name, weighing you down until it buries you in the grave. Then when you do hit the streets, further treatment is just out of reach, so you keep it out of urine instead of being clean. Recovery's only seen in the better parts of your dreams, living the nightmare transforming into a fiend. And there's not a soul alive that can hear you scream. But you know what you need. Even though the sickness got a trick up its sleeve, it starts whispering in your ear till you start to believe that you got a grip. You can handle your disease till they find your buddy dead with an empty IV. Another number, another statistic added to the thousands this year. One thing remains clear as I bury more and more of my peers that most people out there don't really care until it's one of their loved ones added to the prayers. A Facebook wall flooded with love. Rants and raves about how we all hate this drug. I think it's getting a little too overcrowded up above. Heaven needs to stop taking my people. The origins of this epidemic is see-through. Pharmaceutical companies gave birth to a generation addicted to the needle. Legal drug dealing doctors influenced by money is pure evil. Flood the streets with painkillers, then you pull them off the market. They make it easier to transition into heroin when the withdrawals hit the hottest. I don't even think we face the worst part of it. I sit here with a heavy soul, broken-hearted, praying for the dearly departed and that those that are lost will find their light inside of the darkness, coming out clean on the other side. I want to spark a rally and cry that might save a few lives. Every day another angel flies while an entire community mourns while saying their goodbyes. All I can do is try to prove to you that it's worth staying alive.
Have I told you that I love you? That was amazing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
sound
goosebumps.
right.
No, I get goosebumps
Yeah.
every time I hear
Yeah.
it because it's, you know, especially not just when you're like speaking the truth, but when it's just some, you know, raw
Yeah,
from the heart
I was
like
fired
that's
up right
great.
now.
Yeah.
I was pretty angry because
Yeah.
you see all these people that like want to get help. They go through detox and they got no aftercare options and they get pushed to the side. And I remember going through places a lot of times like when I was ready to surrender and I get to detox and I'm like, hey, this is the time, like do everything in your power to get me into aftercare. And all of a sudden there's no beds.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, sorry, buddy. And they
Right.
give you a list of shelters and
Right.
they say, hey, you know, good luck, see you.
Yep.
And you end up back there in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it's
Yeah.
like
Of
this
course.
vicious cycle of insanity where like
Yeah.
people desperately want to get better. So now here I am on the other side. I'm clean trying to help people. They shut down all these services. Everybody's political campaign is always like, let me go help out the people that are suffering and struggling.
Yeah.
And you know what happens the first moment that these fancy people get into office is they cut substance abuse funding because we don't speak up.
Yeah.
Because we had the fear of losing our job. Our history comes up. So we get looked at so differently that like if we were the group of people with cancer and they tried doing that to us, like everybody and their mother would raise a stink about it. But like, you know, when it comes down to people that struggle with substance abuse, addicts, we don't have that voice. And one of the things that getting clean, the poetry benefited me in giving me a platform. It gave me the opportunity to get out there and speak. And then also I wanted to speak for people that couldn't. I'm very fortunate, like working in the field and working with the people that I've worked with, that they always embrace the fact that like I'm a very outspoken person and that I would go to the Mass State House. I would start rallies like when the bridge closed down or like coming up to New Hampshire to get involved with like recovery events. It's like we have to speak because I remember when I was getting high, nobody got clean, so I didn't think it could be done.
Yeah.
I thought I was either
Absolutely.
going to be in a box for the rest of my life or be buried in the ground.
I didn't even realize that there was another
Yeah.
alternative. I
So
had
now
no
it's
idea.
like we have the obligation to the people that's out there struggling and suffering that like we need to put a voice out there. We need to show them that there's hope that they can turn their life around. And one of the things that I try to preach, like I'm nothing. Like unfortunately, I didn't have a college education. I spent that time getting high because I was a very lovely kid growing up. But like I've been able, not trying to talk from my ego, but like I've been able to accomplish some amazing things. And I'm no different than you. And I'm no different than you. And even the person like, you know, who's struggling, it's like if you get clean, there's nothing that you can't accomplish.
That's right.
When you get out of the hell of addiction, you can't throw an obstacle in front of me right now that I don't think I'm going to run through it.
Yep. Yep.
So
And we are amazing people.
Yep.
Amazing
Yes.
people. Because a lot of times, we're talking about our stories and the pain and the hell that we've been through, but there's so many amazing things. Like when you were talking about, traveling and going all over the
Yeah.
place, I was thinking about the first time that like I had gone from a homeless shelter, and then I was at the symposium on the Cape in a hotel,
Yep.
just feeling like cry and tears
Yeah.
of gratitude. Like, how did I go from that to this?
Yeah.
And
No,
just amazing.
It is. And
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like I bought my own house
Yeah.
and sitting on the porch in tears because
Yeah.
I remember every couch I ever slept on, every
That's
basement I
right.
slept in, every
Yeah.
park bench, the gazebo in Boston Common. I relived every single place that I ever rest my head at.
Yeah.
And it's like, it took me a couple years, probably longer than most. I like taking the scenic route.
Same.
Things.
Same.
But to be able to accomplish
Yeah.
things. When I was told I was going to relapse, I was told I would be back in jail. I
Yeah.
was told I was going to be a statistic.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I don't want to be another overdose. I don't want to be a memorial card or a name being read at a candlelight vigil. That doesn't have to be your fate. Right. And when people are out there struggling, a lot of times they can't see outside of the light. They can't see that they deserve such a better life and that they have so many things that they can accomplish if they just take one of the things that I took a lot of the negatives that I did, try to flip them into positives, and one of those things is the hustle. I woke up and I hustled every single day to get high.
Yeah.
Take away the drugs and put it into positive things, the things that were gonna progress my life and make it move forward.
That's right.
Because I'll tell you, addicts are some of the most hardworking people.
We are. We
Yeah.
are in
And
the
we're so
hustle now.
invested.
I
and
have
we
to
are such an
remind
extreme-
myself to stop hustling some days because
Yeah.
I don't even allow myself to calm down to
Yeah.
rest. It's like I gotta
I
go, I
know
gotta
the
get this.
feeling.
People in my life are like, can you slow down?
But it is, and I still get that way. Just like when I was getting ready to have a drink or get high, that feeling of the anxiousness that I get that when I get a message, can you find me a detox bed? I get that same feeling. All right, here we go. It's on.
That's the thing is you're doing
Yeah.
that and you're making such a positive impact on
Yeah.
somebody.
You
And then
guys,
also,
yeah.
I remember when I was getting high, you couldn't call somebody and say, hey, I need help to
That's
get in
right.
bed.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't have outlets like that,
Yeah.
the way that they do now. So now somebody calls you, you end up getting them into a bed, and then
Yeah.
you have no idea what they can accomplish, once they get clean, and the miraculous stories that happen
It's
just by having
unbelievable.
somebody answer the phone. You know what I mean?
Unbelievable.
Hey, I feel I remember how alone it felt when
Yeah.
I was trying to call places. And hey, no bed. Call back in an hour. Click.
Yeah.
And you try to call people, and it's
You gotta call oh my
every
God.
hour,
You gotta
every
call
single hour.
they're 4 blocks a day. You
Yep.
gotta call, and I remember just calling detoxes sometimes for 3-4 weeks. That doesn't happen today.
No.
People are dying in that
No.
time span
No.
today.
Yeah.
And that's
you know?
another thing. I'm very fortunate that I got high at the time I got high in, because if I was shooting dope
Yep.
that's out there now, I'm not sitting in this chair.
It's just a whole different
Yeah.
ball game.
It's a lot harder, and I don't think we've caught up to what it takes to detox somebody properly off fentanyl. I don't think the treatment in the early acute stages has caught up to the changing in what is being offered on the streets.
I feel like there's so much we could dissect and break down here, especially especially with your poem. I was listening to every lyric, and there was so much into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the things I heard is kind of how drug addicts are being marketed. Suppressed to be kept down, so the people in the coats can make the money.
Yeah.
I hate that. Oh, it gets me so riled up. I feel like we need to have you back for another show because we're almost out of time.
I have no problem. I'll be
That
back.
yeah.
went by too
Yeah,
fast.
I love conspiracy theories.
It's not even a
love doing-
conspiracy theory. I mean,
Well, some
if
people will debate that
no,
with us.
No. Because
Yeah.
if you look at how Purdue Pharma mismanaged their marketing schemes to make a mighty dollar in their pocket, flooded the streets with OxyContin, when originally OxyContin was made for hospice patients,
Yeah.
easing into death, and 12 hours of pain relief. When you get healthy athletes, you get healthy human beings to peel that 12-hour release coating off and get the
Yeah.
impact. It's pure euphoria.
You got to look at where the studies are coming from. Who's funding the studies, right?
And that's
Who's
and-
funding the studies? The pharmaceutical companies are.
Yeah, I
You know what
worked
the
at
number one?
hospital
You
then.
know what the number one lobbyist in DC is?
You're gonna tell us.
I will, but I'm asking for do you guys have a guess? Pharmaceutical
Yeah.
companies,
Yeah,
the number one
that would be
lobbyist
my
in DC.
guess.
And when you put money up for people's campaigns, it's not a biased decision when you're making your rulings on whether a drug is approved.
Don't they
not
fund like a
approved.
certain amount of the FDA too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
they actually
They've had their own committees deny putting a new drug out where the FDA has approved it.
Yeah.
They had their own people that they brought in, and they denied it. Yet somehow, some way, this biased, unbiased, whatever you want to call it, FDA group has approved, high impact painkillers to be, put back out on the market. Like we haven't experienced since OxyContin come out the worst drug epidemic, the worst opiate epidemic that's been going, and it stems from a pharmaceutical company of trusting doctors, turning doctors into drug dealers. If you look at the way any medication is marketed these days, watch TV and you'll get a commercial of something with 1 million side effects, with suicidal thoughts. And at the end of every commercial, you know what they say? They say, if you think this is right for you, ask your doctor.
Right.
I love
now
it.
the doctors turn into drug dealers.
You literally can drive down the road and all the billboards are some kind of like pharmaceutical product.
Well, and the problem is, like you were talking about, like we need to catch up with how to treat that in a couple of days worth of detox early on. When those meds come out, the doctors need to catch up with their education, because that's going to happen anyways, and then they just don't know. I was working at the hospital when Oxys first came out, and the ER doctors were telling people it was for a headache and handing them out like candy.
Anything.
Great.
Any bump or bruise, they want to put these drugs, they wanted to push it on you, when at first it came out for cancer patients.
That's right.
On hospice care.
Who should have it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing, because the chronic pain,
End of life.
they have their, they kind of get the short end of the stick for
That's
people that
right.
genuinely need it because of people like us. My bad.
It
My
is.
apologies. But I mean, the reality is they got flooded on the market. So
They
now every
did.
ache and pain you could get it. And if you YouTube old OxyContin
I'm going
marketing
to.
commercials,
She will all night.
right? You'll see like young.
She's gonna send it.
There's one with a young girl that's like, OxyContin saved my life. I used to have a sore back, and I take one of these a day, and now like I can do everything in the
It's
world.
unbelievable.
She's high.
Yeah.
No, I could
We
have
were
done.
Supermen too.
Yeah, when I was high, I'd go I'd fight Mike Tyson.
Yeah, he
'cause
said
I'm
it gave you the
delusional.
ability to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try to fight me now. I'm old and washed.
We only have 30 seconds, Matt. What do you want to say to someone watching?
I just want to say, if you're out there struggling, like, please reach out for help. Give yourself a shot. Like, you deserve such a better life than like the life on the streets, the lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating, that hopelessness that we feel when we're in the streets. Like, if you can just take that step and reach out for help, like, you have no idea what can happen to you. You already know. We know what happens when we get high. We know the results every day when we wake up and we get high. Try something different. Try to give yourself a chance. You deserve it.
Thank you. Meredith, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you
I
guys
love
for
you.
having me. I love you both a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you guys.
Thank you. We're gonna have you back.
grateful.
I might be bring a book too.
Okay.
We're gonna get into all
I
kinds of
won't even
debates.
talk about the book because I'll spew some craziness.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you. My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, AKA the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.